Good morning, everybody. Today I am working on my design team project for Line Dot Arrow, and I'm going to show you how to make this textured peekaboo window for your journals. It's actually pretty easy, but I thought I'd go over this with you. So to start, what I did is I took a piece of cardstock that I had that I didn't particularly like. I was probably never going to use. I cut it down to the size I wanted. I scored, I don't know if you can see here, I scored it in the middle where I want it. And then I just went over it with some random acrylic paint I had to make it grungier, because I am trying to keep it in this kind of color frame here. So I just kind of went over it with a couple layers of paint on both sides, and I just let it dry. I think, I'm not sure which I'm going to use yet, but I'm going to just fold it on the score once it's dried. And what I've done is I have taken one of the pages from her kit. Let's see if I can find the exact one here. I think. Well, here it is. Okay, so this is the page that I'm using, and what I've done is I have fussy cutted. I'm not sure how you along this line here, and of course over the flowers and all that, and removed this part here. So when you're done that, this is the pop-out piece, and this is the frame that is left. So basically I've inked it all around, but in this window here I want to give it a little bit of texture in this window instead of just plain. So what I'm going to do is, where did I put my folder? I'm a little disorganized this morning. There it is. I'm going to run it through my Big Kick and emboss it. So I've got an embossing folder here. This is a Tim Holtz Alterations. And obviously you're going to say, well, you can't emboss the whole thing. And I couldn't. But I don't want to. What I'm going to do is put it through my Big Kick, and I'm just going to put it in random spots on here. Obviously keeping the shape going the same way, but I'm just going to randomly emboss it, and then I'll be right back to show you the results. Okay, so I'm back. So you can see I've randomly embossed around here, and you can see I actually made a boo-boo and I tore it a little bit there, but that's all right. It's still mostly intact, and that just adds a bit to the distressed look on it, and I'm okay with that. If you're not, well, then start again and just, try and be a little gentler, but I find that kind of stuff doesn't bother me at all. So now what I'm going to do is I'm taking my Distressing Ink Vintage Photo, and I like to just kind of, because I've painted on the paper, I don't want to use it right off the stamp pad, because I do have the stamp pad for it. I find then the paint flecks kind of get onto my ink pad and make a bit of a mess. So I put a little bit in the cap, and I just kind of pat it into my brush and then get off some of the excess. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to go around and distress the edges. Give it a little bit of edging there. And then I'm just going to lightly swirl over the embossing, just to pick up a bit of that embossing, but also to give it another layer of color on there. So you can see that's starting to come up nicely now. And just work it in until you get the look you're going for. And I'm going to work it in around that crack too and just kind of add that effect to it. So you're basically just dry brushing your embossing to make it pop out. There, that's pretty good. So now you can see, and then with all the blobs, so sometimes I'll just add a little bit of ink in there. Alright, so get that out of the way. So now you can see what I've got going on. So that will go, you can do it that way, or I can do it this way. I think I'm going to do it this way though. So before I put this down, I am going to just go and I'm going to stitch around the outside and around the side here. Now if you wanted to, you could make this a pocket. On this side here, what I did is I attached, let's see if I got something to put in there. You see, what I did is I attached a piece of acetate onto it before I stitched around it, and so I've made a pocket for this one, which I'll put tags and some ephemera in there later. But this one here, I just want it to be kind of a focal point. So I'm going to just pause and I'm going to go and stitch around, and then I'll bring that right back for you to take a peek. Okay, so as you can see, I've stitched all the way around, and then I stitched around the outside. I just kind of like to frame it up. But because I'm going with a bit of a distressed look here and I can't see my threads as much, I'm just going to go and brush it with my distressing ink right on the threads there to kind of age them up. I mean, you could have put a darker thread in. I've just got a cream in there, but there, I think that just adds a little bit to that. So, figure out what I'm going to do. Now, I also want this to be a definite raised and lowered look. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a bit of cheesecloth in behind here. Let's see what I've got here in my messy desk stash. So, and I'm just going to, again, rub my distressing ink on the cheesecloth, which is also helping to fray out the edges, which I really like. You could tea dye this as well. I just wanted a couple little pieces. Sometimes I will just tea dye all of it to give it a little bit aged look. I'm just going to pull it apart a little bit and figure out, so I think I want it to go behind this part here. Something kind of like that. So it just kind of gives you hard to see in the camera, but it just pops it up a little bit. Gives you a little more texture in there. So all I'm going to do is take some of my Fabri-Tac, and I'm just going to run a bead of glue, just a little bit, around the area of where I want that cheesecloth to go. And then I'm just going to kind of position it in there, and then just press it down so it looks secure enough. So I just want it a piece peeking out. Okay, so now I am just going to, I do a combination of tape, two-sided tape, and glue. I use the two-sided tape in some spots just to give me a quick hold so that until the glue is dried, it's not really going anywhere. And then I'm going to do the rest of this securing with the glue. So I'm just going to peel off my tape, and then I'm going to run my bead of glue, and I'm going to run it not quite to the edge, because that way when you squish it down and secure it, it's not squishing out the side. So I'm kind of running just to the inside of your stitching. And on the sides here, I'm just going to run it right on the stitching there because I figure that's good. A little bit over my cheesecloth. Okay. So now I'm going to just position it. Excellent. And I'm just going to burnish it in place. Give that glue the maximum amount of contact with your paper. And I do want like the edges just up a little bit because once it dries, I just like to go in. I'll show you with this one here. Once it's dried, I take my bone folder here and I just kind of run it along the edge, scuffing it up, and it's just kind of lifting the edge ever so slightly, giving it a little bit of a weathered edge look. And it just kind of peels it back just a little bit. I don't know if you can see that there, but it's just kind of roughing it up a bit so it's not such a clean cut. And I like to do that all along here where I've secured it on the sides too. Just, and see, because that corner is, see, that corner is kind of turned up, so I just like to manhandle it a little bit, give it a little bit. There you can see, turn the corners a little. And then all I do is I go back on the corners that have been kind of turned up a bit and loosened. I just kind of go over with my distressing ink, just to, you know, there we go. So you can see the corners loose a little bit there. That's what I like to do, just to give it another, so it doesn't look like you just slapped it on the page. So now I need to add a little bit of something, and I just thought I have some of these Tracy Fox's, the Flutterby Fussy Cuts butterflies, which I think are kind of cute to add to there. But I'm going to take this one, I think, this one right here, if I could find my scissors. There. Okay, so I'm just going to fussy cut this out and then I'll be back. Alright, so as you can see, I cut out butterfly. The light's really bright today. Cut out the butterfly. I'm just going to distress the edges a bit. I thought this one would work because it's kind of in the color zones that we're doing on here. I'm just going to distress it a little bit, and then I like to just kind of crinkle it a little bit. And then kind of go over the wings with a little bit of a crinkle. So you can see now, you can see my little bit, so that when I put it on, it's just not so flat looking. So again, I am going to, I think, put a little piece of something behind it. I think I'm going to use a little bit of this behind it. Now, I don't know what this is called in Europe. I think this is what you guys call calico in Europe. Here in Canada, we call it factory cotton. And I like it because it's kind of just this natural look, but it tears really easily and it frays up beautifully. And it takes ink. So I'm just going to, a little bit, again, sometimes I will tea dye this in big amounts, but because I'm just looking for a little piece today, I'm just going to stretch the edges there. So I'm going to have my butterfly on that, and I think I need a piece of waxed paper. So what I've done with this waxed paper is I ran it through my Big Kick on an embossing folder. I don't know if you can see it too well. Let's see if I can focus on it. There. So I ran it through my embossing folder, and then I just lightly inked it. And I find sometimes it's just nice little, yeah, see, I just add a piece to it. So I think I like that. So I'm going to glue this in place, and I will start with the bottom layer here. And I'm not gluing right to the edge, I'm just close to, because I'm going to burnish it in place, and that glue will just spread out. And then I'm going to do a little bit of dab on the back of my embossed wax paper. You could do the same thing for the embossing on baking paper as well, and it's kind of got that brown look to it, so that would look nice too. And then I'm just going to layer my butterfly, and actually before I do that, I am just going to distress the back side a little bit, color it a little bit, so that, because I'm not going to secure this absolutely flat, so this way if you are kind of looking at it in the back a bit, you'll see a little bit of the back wings. It's not so stark white. Okay, and I'm just going to run a bead of glue, basically just a little bit here. I'm keeping it so that the wings are loosey-goosey there off the page. And again, I'm just going to burnish that in place. Alright, so there's only one other thing I'm going to do. So I'm going to add a dangle to it here. So I have these little safety pins. They are called, some places they call them button pins. Some call them, garment pins. So I've got I don't want a silver one though. I think I'm going to go for a black one. I have to distress a bunch of them. I did have a bunch that I rusted up, but I'm out of those, so I think I'm just going to use a black one. I like these because I can add little bits to it and it will still hook on nicely because of the little curved part at the bottom. So usually I layer it from the back to the front. So I kind of keep pieces on my desk of little bits. I've got this factory cotton piece here, so I'm just going to distress it a little bit, and I'm going to just cut a little end out of it. There you go. So I'm going to slide. Nope, I want to go front to back, sorry. So I'm going to add, I've got container here of shells and pieces and little tiny rocks that I've found. So I'm just going to take, I think this piece of seashell looks nice. Thread my seashell, and then I kind of do a gradual layering. I've got a piece of lace here. I'm just going to cut this separate. I'll use one of those, and again, it's a little stark white for this look, so I'm just going to distress it both sides because it's a dangle. You'll probably see the other side. There, just take the edginess off. So then I'm going to layer that on. I'm going to put that on, and I think actually before I put that on, I've got a little strip of music paper. I'm just going to tear it off. I'm going to distress the edges a little bit. Do both sides. And this one I'm going to just punch a little hole in the top because I don't want to tear the paper. So I'm just going to get my little tiny hole punch out. Put the hole punch on, and now I'm going to put that factory cotton piece on. So then you've just got a cute dangle, which I think is awesome. And I think, am I going to attach it? Where am I going to attach it? Attach it to the top of my page or to the butterfly? No, I think the top of my page. So I am, again, going to get my hole punch out. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to use my We Are Memory Keepers chomper, and I'm just going to chomp a small hole, and I'm going to put it in a small brad. And I'm going to do it near the edge here so that the pin will go through for the dangle. And I'm just going to add just a little eyelet here. Put that in. And I'm going to just chomp the eyelet down. Perfect. And I'm going to just add my pin to the top corner there. And now I've got myself a little corner dangle. So that's going to be added into my journal. In the next little bit I'll be working on the other back page and the other page, but that's how I did that. As you can see, you can do it many different ways. This one I've just added I'll get closer to the light, the camera there. I've just added the cheesecloth behind it. This one I went a little bit more, but you've got a lot of ways to do it. And again, you can just do simple, put the acetate in there and make it a pocket. Lots of different ways to use this. Anyways, so I am glad you guys came out. Again, please hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe so you can see as I get new things coming up. And I will see you again soon. Thanks for coming.